asked ChatGPT to tell me a horrific story. Here is the result. I'm not sure you can stomach this. But here you go. The night was dark and stormy, with the kind of rain that seemed to seep into your bones and chill you to the core. I pulled my coat tighter around me and hunched my shoulders against the wind, hurrying down the empty streets. I had always hated the night shift at the library, but with the budget cuts, we were all forced to take on extra hours. It wasn't so bad during the summer, when the sun set late and there was still a hint of warmth in the air. But on a night like tonight, with the wind howling and the branches of the trees whipping about, it was enough to make me want to crawl into bed and pull the covers over my head. I was just a few blocks from the library when I heard it. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but as the sound grew louder, I realized that it was something else. It was the sound of footsteps, running towards me at a frenzied pace. I quickened my own steps, glancing over my shoulder to see if whoever it was had gained on me. I couldn't see anyone, but the footsteps were getting closer and closer. My heart was pounding in my chest and my breaths were coming in short, panicked gasps. I was almost at the library now, just a few more steps. I could see the lights shining through the windows and I knew that if I could just make it inside, I would be safe. But as I reached for the door, something grabbed me from behind. I screamed and tried to pull away, but the grip on my arm was too strong. I was yanked backwards, off balance and stumbling. I fell to the ground, landing hard on the wet pavement. The person, or thing, that had grabbed me loomed over me, its face hidden in the shadows. I could see the glint of eyes, cold and empty, and the glint of a knife in its hand. I tried to crawl away, but the figure grabbed me by the back of my coat and yanked me to my feet. I struggled and kicked, trying to break free, but it was no use. The figure was too strong. It dragged me down the street, away from the library and towards the park. I could hear the rain pounding on the pavement and the trees rustling in the wind, but it all seemed distant and disconnected, as if it was happening to someone else. The figure stopped suddenly and I was thrown to the ground. I looked up, expecting to see the knife coming down at me, but instead, I saw the figure turn and run off into the night. I lay there for what felt like hours, too terrified to move. Eventually, my fear gave way to cold, hard anger. I was sick of feeling helpless and afraid. I was sick of being a victim. I dragged myself to my feet and stumbled towards the library. My hands were shaking and my teeth were chattering, but I was determined to make it inside. I pushed open the door and stumbled into the warm, brightly lit lobby. The security guard looked up in surprise. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The guard wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and led me to a chair. "What happened?" he asked. I told him about the figure that had attacked me, about the cold, empty eyes and the glint of the knife. The guard's face grew grave and he reached for the phone. "I'm calling the police," he said. "You stay here and try to relax. Everything is going to be okay." But as I sat there, wrapped in the blanket and sipping on the hot cocoa the guard had brought me, I couldn't shake the feeling that nothing was ever going to be okay again. The figure that had attacked me was still out there, lurking in the shadows. And if it could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. I spent the rest of the night at the library, waiting for the police to arrive and take my statement. They were sympathetic and reassuring, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. They didn't believe me, or at least they didn't believe that my attacker was human. I left the library early the next morning, still feeling shaken and afraid. I knew I couldn't go back to the night shift, not after what had happened. I would have to find another job, something safer. But as I walked home through the empty streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every rustle of the leaves, every creak of the branches seemed like a threat. And when I finally made it home, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was inside, waiting for me. I locked the door behind me and checked all the windows, but I still didn't feel safe. I knew I needed to get some rest, but my mind was racing and my heart was pounding. I lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, trying to push the fear and the doubts to the back of my mind. And as the dawn light began to creep through the windows, I finally drifted off into a restless, dream-filled sleep. When I woke up, the sun was high in the sky and the room was filled with light. I felt a moment of relief, thinking that it had all been a nightmare. But as I sat up, I saw something on my nightstand that sent a chill down my spine. It was a small, intricately carved wooden figurine. It was a creature that I had never seen before, with a twisted, distorted body and a grotesque, leering face. And as I looked into its cold, empty eyes, I knew that it was a warning. I packed my bags that same day and left town, not looking back. I didn't know where I was going or what I was running from, but I knew that I had to get as far away as possible. I never spoke of what had happened to anyone, not even to the police. I was too afraid of being laughed at or dismissed as crazy. And as the years passed, I tried to put the whole thing behind me and move on with my life. But every now and then, when the night is dark and stormy and the wind is howling, I can't help but think about that figure that attacked me. I wonder if it's still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next victim. And I wonder if I'll ever be able to shake the feeling that I'm being watched. Thanks for watching. A like and sub would be much appreciated to my new channel.